This podcast is produced by the Harwood Productions Podcast Network. To learn more about the network and to find more of our shows, visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com.
Cindy Harris. On this first episode, I'm going to show you how to make a really good cinnamon ice cream and serve it with some spiced apples, just perfect for fall. Now, most of the ice creams I'm going to show you how to make are made with mainly 2% milk, so they're not loaded with tons and tons of fat. But we do have to first start by bringing some milk up to a boil. And this usually takes about 12 or 13 minutes, but I did want to show you what that means, bringing it to boil. When you get your milk in your pan and you put it on medium heat, after a few minutes, it's going to form a skin. And then what's going to happen is if you look closely, there are going to be bubbles that start to form under that skin. Now you'll notice I'm not stirring the milk at all, and it is starting to bubble a little bit. That's what I'm looking for here. I don't want it to bubble like boiling water, but I do want to get it to a boil, and this is what it will look like. Now, like I said, the milk takes about 12 to 13 minutes to heat up. So in the meantime, we need to separate 5 eggs. And let me show you how I do this. I start by cracking an egg in a little bowl, and I keep the yolk in the shell, and I kind of go back and forth. And then I put the yolk in a separate bowl and then put the white in a separate bowl. And the reason I do that is just in case I were to get an egg yolk that breaks on me, it doesn't ruin all of the other eggs that I've separated. So when we're all done here, we're going to have 5 egg yolks. You can save the whites if you like for an omelet or something else, but for the ice cream, we just need the 5 yolks. Now, a few other ingredients we need to get together is in a small bowl, measure out 1/2 cup plus 2 tablespoons of sugar and set that aside. Now, while the milk is still coming to temperature, we're going to take our 5 egg yolks and put it in our mixer along with the sugar. And we're going to use the stainless wire whisk, and we're just going to beat and beat and beat this for about 2 minutes. We want it to get very light, very fluffy. And then what we're going to do is once our milk is up to temperature, we're going to start to drizzle that in. Let me show you how we do that. We're going to be tempering these eggs, and so the way to do that is because we have this really hot milk, we only just put in a little bit at a time, almost like a tablespoon at a time, and then let that whisk together. If we were to pour all the milk in at once, then all of our eggs would scramble and it would be a disaster. So start by just putting in these little bits, dribbling in the hot milk into the yolks. Now you'll notice too, I have this on a slow speed. The last thing you want is this hot milk flying up at you. So just take your time, be very patient, and it only takes a couple of minutes, but just little bit by little bit, pour that warm, hot milk actually into the eggs. Now, when all the milk is in the eggs, we're going to take the pan that had the milk in it, don't clean it or anything, put it on a low heat, and then we're going to take our mixture and pour it straight into that pan. Now, you're going to notice how frothy this is. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to cook this a little bit more up to a temperature of 170 degrees. So what you do is you take your wooden spoon, and you do have to stick with this. You just keep stirring back and forth. Now, at the beginning, it looks super frothy like this, but as it starts to heat up a little bit more, it's going to start to get a little bit thicker, and the bubbles are going to kind of dissipate a little bit. Now, this is where an instant read thermometer is really handy because a lot of people tend to overcook it at this point and you get scrambled eggs, which you don't want. So if you cook it right up to 170 degrees, you'll be great. Now, once you get it up to 170 degrees, you're going to put it and run it through a strainer. And you're going to see all those solids were starting to form, so we stopped it at the right time. And then we're just going to bring this over to the counter and we're going to let it cool to lukewarm. And that takes about a half an hour. And this is why I keep it in a big measuring cup. It's kind of easy to handle. And then once it's lukewarm, it's safe to put in the fridge. I just cover it with the plastic wrap and I pop it in the fridge, and it needs to be completely chilled, which takes between 2 and 3 hours. Now, while our custard base is chilling, we can go ahead and make our spiced apples. Now, you're going to want to get 4 apples, and today I'm using Granny Smith apples because they kind of hold their shape really well when you cook them. And what you're going to want to do is peel the apple, then you're going to want to cut it and core it. And then once you've got that done, we're going to want to cut these into some fairly uniform slices. So what I do is I cut the half in half, and then I run the blade about 4 or 5 times through it. And I don't want it to turn into applesauce, so I need the chunks to be fairly big, but I do want everything to cook about the same time. So cut them fairly uniform. Now, once your apples are all ready, go ahead and get a large skillet, and over medium-high heat, you're going to want to put in 1 tablespoon of butter. And we're going to let that melt and get kind of foamy. And once it starts to get foamy, then we're going to take and put all of our apples in. And using a heat-resistant spatula, just go ahead and start turning those apples over and over in that butter. Now, once the apples are all nicely coated with the butter, we're going to go ahead and add our other ingredients. And we're going to first start by putting in a 1/2 cup of sugar. And then we're going to put in a 1/2 cup of brown sugar. And then we're going to take our spatula and we're going to toss the apples in these sugars. And what's going to happen is the brown sugar and the white sugar are going to start to melt. And that's going to kind of begin to give us a little bit of a sauce. Then the spices we're going to add are 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and then 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. And if you have fresh, that really tastes better. And so that would just be a couple of cranks of your nutmeg mill. And then to kind of brighten the flavor a little bit, we're going to add the zest of 1 small lemon. Now, as you can see, the apples are starting to release their juices and it's starting to bubble up under there with the brown sugar and the white sugar and everything. So you are going to want to stay with this. The apples will only take a total of about 15 minutes to cook like this because we're cooking it at a fairly high heat. But look at how dark and caramely colored that's getting. That's really what we're looking for. And then the last few minutes, as the apples start to get more and more tender, the whole dish starts to get that dark color. Now, once you get the apples to where they're nice and tender, you just turn the heat off and set it off to the side and just let them cool naturally in all that liquid. And you can serve them, you'll want to serve them actually about room temperature over the ice cream. So just set them off to the side. Now, once your ice cream base is chilled, we're going to take it out of the refrigerator and add 1/4 cup of heavy cream, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon. Now, as you stir the cinnamon in, you're going to notice it's not going to want to incorporate much. Don't worry about it. As it churns away in the ice cream maker, it will take care of that for you. Now, I have one of these little home ice cream makers made by Cuisinart, and the bowl is what's frozen. And I keep it in one of those giant zip bags in the freezer, and I just take it, put the bowl right on the ice cream maker, and then I put the little dasher in, just like that, put the lid on, and lock it in. And then I go ahead and start the machine so the dasher is churning. Then I just go ahead and grab my ice cream base. And this is why I like to make it in this large measuring cup, because you pour it right through that center. And you just let the ice cream machine do its thing, and it's in about 20-25 minutes. It depends on your machine. Pretty soon this is going to thicken up. That cinnamon is going to be totally dispersed through the ice cream. Look at that. And you're just looking for the dasher to start making some tracks in the ice cream. And once you feel it's about as solid as it's going to go, then we're going to stop the machine and harden the ice cream off. Now, this next part, in the old-fashioned days when we had to hand crank our ice cream, we had to do this part really fast. But you don't have to do that now with these new machines, because the bowl is still freezing cold, so that ice cream is not going to melt on you. So take your time. Now, I have some of these containers that I put the ice cream in, but whatever you've got that can go in the freezer, just go ahead and scoop all of that ice cream. It's kind of at a soft serve stage right now. Put it in your containers and put a lid on them, and then pop them in the freezer. And it won't take long for these to harden off, just an hour or so. So let me show you how I would serve this. The first thing I do is I take kind of a shallow dish or bowl, and I'd put a couple of spoonfuls of those great spiced apples in the bottom. And then I get my big ice cream scoop, and I get one nice big scoop of that cinnamon ice cream. And look how nicely that hardened off. I mean, it's perfect. And then I take a little bit of that juice from the apples and drizzle that on top. You know, it's so great with these new home ice cream makers, because they're so easy to put together a really great ice cream. They don't take a lot of fuss with the salt and ice, and they don't make a ton of ice cream, just a little under a quart. Now, if you've got an apple tree in your backyard, or your neighbor does, go ahead and try this cinnamon ice cream with the spiced apples. It's a wonderful way to start fall. As always, thanks so much for watching. If you want to get today's recipe, just go to our website. And if you have any questions, send me an email. I'll see you next time.